Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, and welcome to this month's episode of the Dynamic Convergence. I am your host, just Tracy, and I have two of my lovely co-hosts with me today. I have Josh and David. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Howdy.
Oh,
Because that
guys,
did
I
that
love
didn't
us.
sound creepy. That
That
didn't
was
sound
no,
creepy how I did
it
that.
wasn't. It was beautiful. It was just, yeah, I needed to hear that from both of you.
It was a
Even
tender
just the
moment.
howdy and all. Oh, yes. We are all well, are we, guys? Everybody doing good?
I'm free from work, so yeah, I'm fantastic. Actually, I'm
David's
free.
good.
And I'm chilling out with cats. And that's a good thing.
That's what we want. Okay, well, we were supposed to have a couple of other guests with us tonight, but unfortunately, duty calls and other things happen, and they can't be here, so it's just going to be the three of us. And our topic for this month is speaking with each other about the superheroes, the heroes, the anti-heroes, even the villains within the comic industry that on the DC and Marvel who influenced us, who had an impact on our lives from when we were children right up to now. And they don't even have to be the same people. And I know a lot of people out there resonate so well with the comic industry and with the characters that are portrayed by them, and they take things from them and use them in their own lives. So I thought it was quite an important topic that we sit down and discuss about between ourselves. So, Josh, I think you should jump straight in.
Okay. The biggest one that's really had a huge impact on my life is Batman. I mean, that's the first sort of superhero comic book character that I was exposed to. Um, and it was the Adam West Batman.
Oh God,
I've
yeah.
if you're gonna start with anything, that's the one to go with. Um,
Yeah.
I can't pinpoint what it is about Batman that I was like, oh my god, that just left me enthralled. Um, and it may just be how, the design of his costume, the Batmobile. Ugh, yum. Um, this is
That
a PG
Batmobile.
13 show, there, kids. Um, just all everything, the tech that he has at his disposal, you know, things like that just has always intrigued me. The inner monologues. I mean, he's perfected inner monologues better than any superhero on the planet. Um, there's funny enough the Joker. Uh,
That's not a funny one at all. I
uh,
think a lot of people, and no pun intended, but I do think a lot of people see a lot of themselves in the Joker and in aspects of his personality.
That
I
is one
I
of the most disturbing
yeah.
things I've ever heard in my entire life.
Well,
True.
okay, so here's why the Joker intrigues me so much. Because he's willing to cross that line with no disregard, and he laughs about it. I mean, he can think of the most sick, twisted things on the planet, and it's funny. And maybe it's a coping mechanism, maybe he really is that psychotic, or maybe it's a mix of both. But oh, it's going to get loud. There's an ambulance. I'm driving.
That's okay.
Don't drive. No texting and driving, kids.
But
Um,
podcasting and driving, mm,
that's why I use headphones for this.
excellent.
Um, you know what? Fire truck's coming out too. I'm going to wait a second. Um, so going back to the Joker, though, I guess just seeing how he kind of handles things as far as the struggles that he's having, he laughs about it. He doesn't take it too seriously. Um, and that's the part that I think was the most intriguing for me, especially as I got older. Um, is that part, because let's be honest, life can get difficult, when shit hits the fan, and the best way to kind of work through it is to laugh. You know,
I do understand where you're coming with that as well. Like I know personally, my first interaction with Batman would have been the same thing. It would have been the Adam West. Um, and like I loved that show growing up as a kid. But my Joker had to be from the '89 movie with, you know, when it was all, you know, all about Jack
dark
Nicholson.
and brooding. Yeah.
And he, to me, was, you know, he was my Joker. And he still is. Like, I know everybody goes on about the other adaptations of him, but, you know, for the Batman, you know, he wasn't someone I was drawn to. Especially when I was younger. You know, obviously it's completely different now as an adult because I love reading most of the Bat stuff. But when it came to the Joker, I understand sometimes when people sit down and talk about the Joker and the different types of person he is and the different versions of him, how people do actually relate. Because no matter how crazy he is, there's that undertone of reality with him.
Yeah.
And I think
Well,
that's people in.
oh, David, go ahead.
I was gonna say I agree as well, but I came to Batman a lot later. I'll be honest. I think I've said this in other pods that I'm not really a big fan of Batman '66. It was just a little too campy for me, especially I guess growing up. And what really got me, you know, and I enjoyed occasional Batman books, and I liked the '89 movie. But when the animated series came out, that and then the Frank Miller books came out, that really got me into Batman. And so I think it's because it kind of hit me at the head in the headspace I was in at the moment. You know, when I'm gonna end up talking about the characters that resonate with me, it's really odd because knowing what our subject is going to be, I could look back and I could see different eras in my life and where I was at, and really the characters who are my favorite really line up with who I was at that time. So
I would agree because like if I think of my childhood and the character that resonated with me as a child, it was always Supergirl. I remember seeing the movie and thinking, there's books about this girl, and I went out and I bought them, and my, you know, it was just she to me at that time was just the most amazing character. And then somebody said, "Hey, do you know who this Wonder Woman is?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's Linda Carter on the telly." And they're like, "No, this isn't just Linda Carter." And for me, as a young, like, you know, very young age, being brought to these comics and being like, whoa. Again, for me, these were positive female role models that you weren't getting on the TV, that you weren't getting everywhere around. You know, you wanted, you know, something to fill that gap. And for me, they were the ones. And you know, then you say as I progressed and got older, when I came into my mid-teens and my late teens and my early 20s, I was more into the kind of darker anti-hero, and that's when I came across Constantine. Like John Constantine, as everybody knows, is my man. I love him. And it was funny reading back his original Hellblazer run because it was written in the 80s. So I was a child of the 80s. I was growing up, and obviously I was in the Republic of Ireland. So the stuff that was written that he had was all about the UK. So I knew all about that history. I knew it was places I could identify with. You know, and then obviously the older I got, the more interested in other comics I got. And, you know, Sandman is somebody big, but the death from Sandman had a huge impact on my life in my mid-20s when I was reading that as well. So I would agree with David that it does, that it's the different eras in your life. You do resonate with different comics.
yeah, definitely. And for me, you know, as a young child, I would say, you know, up until about maybe 11 or 12, I had two favorite characters, and the first, I think I've talked about this a little bit before on other pods. You know, my first intro with comics is I was home. I think it was like 7, and I was really really sick, and I think I had bronchitis or something. But my dad found one of those giant size books. So we're talking It was like huge. I don't know how big it was, but it was. It had a bunch of different DC stories in it, and the cover was the Superman and Flash doing in the race, racing.
Oh yes, who's the
And
fastest?
I was a little kid. I was really little, way right into high school. I didn't grow until I was in high school. And so this idea of this guy running, uh, with the sparks coming off his feet, lightning and everything, which is so cool. And it used to drive my parents crazy because we would go out and I'd be at baseball practice, soccer practice. And during off times, I would see if I could run fast enough. And then I would run on the wall. So I'd actually like run and like try and run along the wall, horizontal to the ground, and then wipe out and then do it again. So I was like, I was trying to run fast enough like the Flash. I just thought it was so cool. And then the other one was for me is I started swimming competitively, here in Southern California at like 6, and I was always at the beach and surfing and scuba diving or not scuba diving, snorkeling and spearfishing and the whole thing. And so Aquaman, even though he gets a lot of stick for how he was portrayed and like the super friends and everything else, but to me Aquaman was awesome.
Yeah.
And just the
See,
idea of being able
I
to
like Namor for the swimming aspect, because I also swam competitively in high school,
uh-huh.
and I thought Namor was an absolute badass. He didn't give a shit about anyone, and if you guys haven't noticed, it's kind of how I am. I can be very self-centered.
Really?
Yeah, I know. And that was Namor for me. I didn't really become a huge Aquaman fan really until Jason Momoa put his arms around me, and then I was sold.
Yes, you did. That was a good picture.
Oh, very much so.
So let's move on and we'll think. So from childhood, under the age of 12, who was your jam?
Ooh, under the age of 12.
Yeah. We'll do this in
Well,
life stages.
so let's see, 12. That would have been the Power Rangers.
Yeah.
It's a toss-up between Power Rangers and Spider-Man.
Were you reading Power Ranger comics or were you just watching the TV show?
Oh, I was just watching the TV show.
Okay.
Because at that age, who wants to read? I mean, just kidding. I read all the time.
Don't listen to them, kids. Read. Reading's cool.
Reading is cool.
It's fun to
There was also Inspector Gadget. And that was towards the end of it, but I was even Inspector Gadget, like something about him. He was such a klutz, but everything worked out well for him.
David, how about you? Under 12, who was your jam?
So it would definitely be, even though I liked Aquaman, it would definitely have been the Flash. So Flash was my man. I wanted to be him, and I thought his powers were the coolest thing ever. And I remember exactly the panel. I can see it in my head, the panel that convinced me the Flash was the coolest thing ever. And he was fighting Zoom, and they're running on a wall, fighting each other, running parallel to the wall, or parallel to the ground. Hence, I was trying to run parallel to the ground, and oddly enough, I could never run.
Funny, isn't it?
That, so, yeah.
It's funny though, the little things from like that you remember that will stand out. I always remember thinking, oh my God, like I was reading a Supergirl, and she had like her one of the super animals, and it was a chimp. And I was like, oh my God, she's like Michael Jackson. She has her own chimpanzee. That was the thought that ran in my head. I was like, how cool. She's like Michael Jackson. But yeah, for me, it was definitely Wonder Woman and Supergirl were, for me, just the most amazing things I had ever seen. Both visually, on screen, and then obviously reading. Obviously I was big into the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Me and my brother together, like, and that went on. You know what I mean? Like I remember for Christmas like my brother and I would always get our own individual presents, but then we would get like a group present that we would have for to play together. And one of the years, my mum and dad bought me and my brother the shells and the suits so that we
Uh,
could be Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And like I'm 4 years older than my brother, so it was like, come on, Michael. And my brother's called Michael, so you know what I mean. It was the best thing.
Well, and
um,
that's at the time that we got the live action movie, like that was the absolute best, like the '90s movie.
oh God, yeah. All the turtle movies were amazing. Let's be
Oh
honest.
yeah, yep,
Even
yep.
the one when they were sent back in time. I don't care what anybody else says. I still like that one.
I think we should do, and I realize this will be for a future podcast. We're going to do one just on the turtles.
That could be arranged.
I would totally do that.
I knew as soon as I mentioned it, Tracy, you were sold.
David, you can be on it too, okay?
Okay. Yeah, I love the Turtles too. I love the cartoons that were on, and then I remember, being in high school in the '80s, and every now and then some guy would be able to find. They were hard to find, at least out here, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle comics
Mm.
would show up, and those were amazing. So different from the cartoons and the movies, but really really
Yeah.
good.
And I think that was something that was really cool as well when I think about the stuff that like the TV shows compared to the comic books. At that stage, and that we had Wonder Woman from the 70s as a TV show. And the comic book only kind of started to evolve into itself properly in the late 80s and 90s, I think, anyway, for me. Um, and it's just crazy to look back on that time when I was
Well,
so young and have these really, really strong women that came to me through movies and then led me to read the comics.
and if we're kind of going off of that, from the '90s, we had the Adventures of Lois and Clark
Oh,
with
Lois the
Dean
Clark.
Cain and Terry Hatcher. I mean,
I love Dean Kane. He was
if you're
so
talking
beautiful
about
when I was
strong, oh yeah, yeah, he's the nicest guy in the world. If you ever get a chance to meet him, do it. Um, but with regards to them, and with you talking about strong female characters, I love the Lois Lane that they had in that. Terry Hatcher's Lois Lane she was a badass.
Yeah, she took no crap
Yes,
from nobody.
she would put herself in those situations that would require Superman to save her, but the impact that show and to even looking at kind of the relationship between Clark and Lois,
But
you
let's be
can really
honest.
kind of base the comics now.
Yeah. Lois Lane is kind of a badass. Period. I mean, you look at her. I forget the actress's name, but the one who played Lois in the '70s Superman movies,
Oh
Oh,
God,
oh, Margot
yeah,
Kidder.
Margot
You
yeah.
Kidder.
know, it's been a year.
And then
It
to
has
go
been
back,
a year since she passed away.
yeah. And then go back to George Reeves, the lady who played Lois Lane back then. I mean, she was a no nonsense reporter who could dish it out, and she's going in there and talking up uh,
Yeah.
Perry White and everything. So Lois has always been right there, the sassy, no nonsense city girl reporter who's doing her job and isn't afraid to go out and do what she needs to do. So
Yeah, she's definitely one that didn't want to mess with if you were in her way. You were like, okay, let's run.
Yeah.
And it was funny because I wasn't into Superman for like I didn't read Superman comics till I was a lot older. And I watched the Lois and Clark purely because of and it was purely because Dean Cain was hot, and that was the only reason I was watching it. I had no interest. Which was I always found quite ironic because I loved Supergirl so much. I would have assumed I would have wanted to know more about our cousin who
Yeah.
came here first, whose movies I've watched, but there was no pull to that. Um, but then I was as I left my preteens and went into my teens, it was darker, more anti-hero styling comics that I fell in love with, and then fell back onto the major two then when I was in my mid 20s. So it's interesting.
That
So
kind of had a gateway drug into because I'm in the same headspace you are, Tracy. I don't think it's like a real shock to anybody who listens to us. We like a lot of the same things. My gateway drug, like in my teen years, was I think my favorite character at that point was a Marvel character, and in my opinion, at least especially in the '80s, is that Marvel was a lot more teen angsty. It had
yeah,
that vibe versus DC always had that very iconic good versus evil, and that's not really where I was so much then. And so, growing up, and I was Catholic, and being a teenager, and going through a bunch of stuff, and so I really identified and still identify with Nightcrawler.
oh yes, lad.
Really, yeah, who really checked a lot of those boxes. I love his power set. I love the fact that on the outside he looks like a demon, but he's a good person inside, and he's trying to do all these things, and he's got that faith. It was the same reason I like Daredevil, but Daredevil doesn't look as cool as
Nightcrawler.
Nightcrawler. So
Yeah, Kurt Wagner looked his
yeah,
own. And it's funny because my next person that I would have said, so coming out of my late like tweenies into my teenies, um, Storm for me was everything.
right.
Like I remember watching the cartoons, the X-Men, the original series, the animated series, and I was like, why is she not the one in charge? Why is she not she's Mother Nature for Christ's sake. And I could never get my head around why she wasn't in charge. Um, and then it wasn't until I started looking into her, and then again as I grew older, and as the comics progressed as well, and they had some amazing, you know, like about her backstory, about where she was from, alternate timelines. She's a queen, she's a goddess, she's married to Black Panther. That was a crossover nobody seen, and there was all these things that made her so much more than the character she was in the cartoon that it used to frustrate the shit out of me. So I used to have like this little online, I wasn't even online, I was writing in my little school paper and my little, with my friends, writing fan fiction for Storm. Because I thought, she deserves it, man. She deserves it.
I like it.
Do you have any
I'd be
kind
for it.
of, yeah, I just thought, again, and it was never something I was very aware of, that I had all these very strong female, women that I read about. Um, and again, it's not until you reflect on it that you realize that actually, yeah, these were the people that did shape what I thought and how I felt about a lot of things, you know. And especially with her because she was so level-headed. I found, as somebody who controls nature, who has all that fierceness of Dark Phoenix within her, but she's calm, you know. And I found that the
Yeah, Storm
biggest thing
has
to achieve.
always been very level-headed, you know, and I think with her, I think Charles Xavier appreciated her level-headedness, because you look at Scott Summers, who's driven, he wears his heart on his sleeve.
And I
I
think as
mean, all you
well,
have to do is say Gene, and he drops to the floor like Batman like Batman with Martha.
I, I think it kind of hits on an even greater topic, which is I think the X-Men, by their very nature, really appeal to a lot of teenagers and young adults just by the things they're going through,
yeah,
and how you feel at that time, and who you identify, which X-Men you pick out, But I've talked to a lot of kids or people who are our age now who identify with X-Men for those reasons because you're going through so many things, and the X-Men kind of have this external, pressures on them, but they've changed, ostracized, they feel out of place, you
yeah.
know, And like you were saying, how you identify with Storm, how exactly how I felt, with Nightcrawler. I
Mm.
just saw so much of himself in me, and it's kind of like he was very iconic. He was kind of the person that he was dealing with a lot of things that I would be dealing with, and I would like to be. You know,
Yeah. I think with me with Storm is she was who I wanted to be.
right?
You know what I mean? It wasn't that that's what I felt I was going through, or she was the one I wanted to emulate her because things that she possessed were the things I put stock in, the things that I thought, as an adult, they were the values, they were the traits that I wanted. I wanted to be able to be the one that was strong and together and held and respected in the way that she was. And I think out of
Mm-hmm.
all the X-Men, the reason why Charles Xavier didn't give her the lead seat like he did with so many others was that he knew he couldn't manipulate her.
Yeah, I think just to share a little bit
I
of
think they had the most even relationship out of all the other X-Men.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, and just to share a little bit of personal information, for me with Nightcrawler, for a long time I went through a lot of stuff where I had really a negative self-image and didn't feel good about myself and had a lot of negative self-talk. So, I struggled with thinking that I was always a very bad person, and here I was, I really overachieved in high school and college and everything, but for me, nothing was ever good enough. I thought I was really a bad person. So that same struggle, the personal side of things, just wanted to work inside.
Sorry, Dave, you're coming in and out there, and you're kind
Uh,
of breaking up a bit.
is that better or
That's a little bit better now.
okay?
Sorry, just
You,
like
you were
obviously it was important what you were saying, and you were coming in and out, so I just wanted
you were vamping a little bit.
Okay.
proper bump.
Here, let me see. Can
That's
you hear me
much.
now?
I can now much better now.
Okay. So, what I was saying is that
Your
to share a
negative
little bit
self-image.
of personal experience I have with my self image is that I struggled for a long time with very negative self image, and the world saw one thing, and it was a little bit of the opposite. I really overachieved in high school and college and had all these things going on, but I really hated myself, and I thought when I look in the mirror, I thought that I was just really a bad person or a horrible person, and had a lot of depression issues and things like that, and so it was a struggle all the time, and so I really identify with Nightcrawler in that way. In fact, I'm not ashamed to admit that at times in my life I've gone to therapy and stuff, and I've used Nightcrawler as a way to express myself, and it really helped, and it's gotten me, I'm 47 now, I think. It's hard to remember, but
In and around that, yeah.
yeah, it's gotten me to a good headspace now. It took a long time, but those types of things, being able to use as reference and stuff, and then to figure out myself, I don't want to be that character because obviously it's fictional, but I use everything I've read, through my years to get to that space, and Nightcrawler was one of those. I think it was really important for me. So
That is really true. Like you see the qualities within these people that you read about, and they're the good, the bad, and the ugly, and no matter what it is that it attracts you and pulls you to that, you can hold on to that for the rest of your life because it's given you a base of reference. Where a lot of kids nowadays don't have the ability to express how they feel and who they are, and in a world where there's so many different availabilities of gender identification, of the different religions, the different aspects and social, and you know to have these comics out there nowadays that we have, that kids are able to go, yeah, I feel like Mother Panic, or yeah, I feel like the Joker, or yeah, I feel like Rogue or Jubilee, or to have that facility there is for me, as somebody who, like yourself, had huge, self image issues, had lots of depression, and didn't know how to react and put things. Um, to be able to have these points of reference for me was huge growing up.
Definitely.
You know what's interesting? The other character that really kind of sits strong with me is Two Face.
Mm,
You look at Two Face, Harvey Dent is, district attorney. He's wanting to do good, but deep down inside, he has this inner torment, and
yeah,
it just happens to be accentuated with half of his face being burned off.
yeah,
Um, and the fact that he uses his double-sided coin as his decision maker. He's got the one side that is, if it lands, right side up, he makes the right choice.
mm,
But if it lands the other side,
not so much.
that's when not so much. And I feel like anyone, regardless of what they're going through, are faced with kind of that same sort of, decision of flipping a coin. You
Yeah,
know the options, you know the directions, even if you don't think you do. And then what are you going to do? Well, I'm going
yeah,
to flip a coin, and then at that point, then it's the commitment level, and then that's a
ball
whole
game.
different ball game there.
Sure.
But the logic and the mentality of Two Face, I think, can honestly relate to anyone with any situation you're facing, good or bad.
Yeah, I would agree, and I think we are going to have another podcast hopefully soon. We're hoping to get a very special guest on it, but we are hoping to do a podcast on mental health issues within comics. And that's a huge thing nowadays. There's some amazing books out there. There's a book called Batman and Psychology, and it's about, the different characteristics of Batman and the characters within that comic franchise, and the different psychological conditions of the human brain and the human mind, and how they're able to, discuss and disclose these different types of things through these characters. So, we will be talking about that. We will be going into it more in depth on another pod. So just so if people are triggered by anything we say, if anybody is feeling really, that they're really connected to what we're saying, reach out. We're here, but also know that there will be other conversations being had as well.
Sure.
And especially, it's hard, when you sit down and you're talking about these fictional characters, but they do mean a lot to us. And that's what this is about. This is about these people who have influenced us for whatever reason. Um, and that's what's important. And, if we influence you in any way, shape, or form, we're proud to do that. So, but if you need to reach out to us, we're here too. So I always like to put that out as well when we kind of tap, tap
It,
subjects like this too.
I think it's so interesting you said Two Face as well, because I think even though I like Batman, I think the thing I love the most about Batman, I love Batman now as an adult, uh, especially. But the thing I love the most is the Rogues Gallery and the various um, personalities slash problems
Mm-hmm.
in that Rogues Gallery.
Mm,
I'm one of those people that can go to a party or go to the beach or something and just sit, and I like to watch people and and
Mm-hmm.
and figure them out and read about those types of things in books and stuff. And so seeing all of these various sometimes it's mental illness, sometimes it's personality traits, but whatever it is in the various characters is just fascinating to me. And each one they come up with is nuanced in some other way. From Hush to Two Face to Poison Ivy. You could go and talk literally for an hour on each of those characters and not even scratch the surface most of the time. So
Oh, hugely. Yeah, hugely. And it's funny when you think of that. Like I remember for me with the Batman scenario, I was more interested in the villains.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for me, they held more appeal in the interest factor. You know, we had the likes of, you know, Solomon Grundy. Like that's an interesting character. You
Mm-hmm.
know, we have you know, like we obviously Catwoman. You can't have strong, independent women without talking about her. And you know, like I remember looking at Eartha Kitt in '66, going, "Whoa, who is this crazy lady?" And then Michelle Pfeiffer came out and was just blew me away. And I had to know more. I needed to know who Selena Kyle was, what made her
Mm-hmm.
tick. But I didn't want to be her. I didn't want to emulate her, but I wanted to know who she was. Like she was the kind of the cool bad chick that was in school that you kind of wanted to be friends with, but you kind of didn't because you knew she'd get you into loads of deep shit.
Yeah.
yeah,
You know, and I'm sure we've all got one of them from our pasts. But you know, there are these things with the especially with the Batman universe. I think there's so many cool other characters that are not just the main ones. You know.
Well, and David brought up a good point in that the Rogues Gallery. It's not that their conception or creation is based off of an idea, a theme. You know, you bring up Hush, you bring
Mm.
up Catwoman, you even look at Mr. Freeze.
Yeah.
Everything he's doing is to bring Nora back, to save his wife.
right.
Um, Penguin, you know, there's the social injustice and all the crap that he went through that's kind of built him to where he's at. Ra's al Ghul, you know,
Douche is
trying
a
to make the
crazy
world a
bastard.
he is a crazy bastard, but he's determined in his mission to make the world a better place. Granted, his methods not so much, but you know, it's the theme. Clayface,
Yeah.
talk about identity crisis, you know, and he's a pure narcissist
Mm.
in every sense of the word, more than the Joker, which
Ventriloquist.
is
Yeah.
yeah, you know, and I think that's been one of the unique things that makes Batman kind of special, at least in my book. Not to say that Superman's villains of Metallo, Brainiac,
Lex Luthor, for
Lex
God's
Luthor.
sake.
I was saving the best for last. Um, you know, or Doomsday. They don't necessarily have those themes. Same thing with, you know, Flash's villains, Spider Man's, X Men. Their villains are
The villains.
I don't.
Yeah.
They're just villains.
Yeah.
Um, there's not a theme that's behind them. You know, Scarecrow with
Okay.
fear, so on and so
Okay.
forth.
I'm gonna interrupt and jump in because I'm just thinking we
Oh,
digress slightly. So from 12 to 18, who was your jam?
Stone
Who
Cold
influ-
Steve Austin.
who
Oh,
influenced you in the comic book world?
comic book. Oh,
Yeah, not Stone Cold. You still dress like him and you still look like him. It's fine. He
I
loves
know.
you.
Well, that's because at that age, that's when I got into pro wrestling, so I wasn't reading comics as much.
Okay.
So,
So you had a
you know,
gap.
I did. There was a gap where I wasn't reading comics as much. I mean, I'd still pick them up and read them, but you know, for during that time period, yeah, no, it was the pro wrestlers. It was The Rock. It was Stone Cold. You know, Stone Cold's. You know, don't trust anybody. You know, he does what he wants. That was that anti-hero, or you know, in wrestling in that day and age, having the heel be the good guy was a complete momentum shift for the industry.
Yeah.
And you look at the Attitude Era and the impact that it's had on society. I mean, hell, we now use the word SmackDown because of The Rock. Um,
You
You
smell what
know,
he's cooking like
exactly. You know,
with the people's eyebrow.
but those characters, because that's really what it is. It was like a live action comic book. That's how
Exactly.
I look at pro wrestling. It's a live action comic book, um, with writing, story arcs, and sometimes bad writing.
I always call
Um,
I call pro wrestling soap opera for with violence. So
you're damn right it is. But that was very influential to me. I mean, Degeneration X,
Oh,
taking the expectation of this is how we're supposed to be, and we're just gonna say screw you,
I just
suck it.
couldn't. I couldn't understand how all of a sudden, Hunter Helmsley turned to Triple H, and like, oh, Shawn Michaels was, oh my God, Shawn Michaels, and then the 1, 2, 3 Kid was now X Pac. I'm like, lads, we know who he is. Are like these aren't teenagers.
and
Stop
that's
it
and that's
with the
a Vince
eyeliner.
McMahon thing. But you look at the big names from that industry, and it falls under really three: Stone Cold, The Rock. I would, and the third, I'm going to say The Undertaker.
Oh, the Undertaker was my jam. I was in love with
So,
him.
now we're
you
gonna have
know,
to do a whole nother pod on wrestling because I'm
yes.
sitting here wanting to completely disagree with you and go a whole different direction. So
Well,
Okay, let's go
she
back
asked
then.
me.
yeah.
She asked me who influenced me during that age. That's what I'm running with because
Right then. Okay, David, who influenced you at that age?
in comics, that's what she's wanting.
So this
I
is
look,
my,
if you
my
did, if you took a break from comics, and like I stopped reading comics from the age of 21 to 26 because I ended up being in a relationship with somebody who told me it was stupid, so I stopped doing it, and it was the stupidest thing I ever did. Stop
Yeah,
reading
that
for the,
was kind of dumb. That was
I
kind of dumb,
know,
Tracy.
because like they were really good years, you know what I mean?
so
Yeah,
this was my teen years we're talking about.
yeah, your teen years,
Yeah, this is still it's still Nightcrawler. So um and
all the way
he
through.
got me even through West Point, so I'm there and I'm miserable, at this place far from California, far from home, and my little 5-year-old sister and my mom, every time they go to the grocery store, would pick me up an X-Men comic and mail me cookies and an X-Men comic. And so every
That's
week,
amazing.
uh, my 5-year-old sister would write me a little note saying, I love you, and she would bake me some cookies, and I'd get an X-Men comic, and
That's
life was a little
amazing.
bit better. So,
Did you find when you were in such a strenuous environment such as that, that the comics helped you escape even
oh yeah, two
without
things.
without going AWOL?
They sent me they sent me comics and they sent me surfing magazine. So I got surfing magazine and comic books. So
Now, the surfing magazines, were they, proper ones, or were they like ladies on surfboards?
no, proper surfer magazines, and I missed home, and so I would open up that magazine and see the beaches and the waves and yeah, there were girls. So I mean, I got
Obviously, it was in the
girls
sun.
they were surfing. So, that counts. But yeah, between that and the comics, and it was a lot of X-Men. It was X-Men and Batman comics that my mom and my sister sent me. So
And did
uh,
anybody else in your crew have comics sent to them, or was it just yourself?
no, there were a couple other guys that got them
Yeah.
um, in the group, but mostly no. It was mostly there were a couple of friends.
It was mostly Playboy and Hustler Life, let's be honest.
Yeah, well, that was going on. Yeah, definitely. But I mean, there was always that one guy. I mean, I got to share the story, but there's this one guy. I don't know where he is now. He's probably in West Hollywood somewhere. But this one guy who was famous because if you wanted, that type of material, a porn or a Playboy or whatever, he had trunks full of this stuff. I was like, I don't know what he was doing. He was going to New York City every weekend. But this guy was like the porn master. And I was like, what the hell is going on with this guy? And he's probably running like Vivid Video or something now in like Burbank. But was a little disturbing. So it was like, what is going on
You're
here?
like, those are not the comics I was looking for.
So, but yeah, I mean, people would come and borrow my comics, and they're well loved and well used, and I've still got most of them here. Back then I wasn't really a collector in the sense that I was bagging and boarding everything.
Mm.
I just wanted to read them, and that's
I
really who I still am. I just wanted to read the stories,
I'm
and
terrible. I don't bag and board any of my comics unless they're really like important issues because I read over and over and over again my favorite issues or my favorite trades or whatever it may be because I can't they're there to be read. That's what they're designed for. They're there to
Yeah.
inspire and like and
just
then obviously like the older I got and when I came out of that silly time of not reading, I went straight back into it. And I was reading Punisher and I was reading, I love Frank Castle, he's so cool. And like, we're rereading the Hellblazers and then reading John Constantine and then reading Sandman and then reading the one shots off from that and the two uh, Death comics like that she had, her own standalones. Reading Spawn, like I know we're not. Well, we're talking about everything else, so I'm going to throw Spawn in there. I just love him. Just everything
yeah.
about him was just so cool, and that dodgy movie was awesome. And then
I love the movie. I love the animated movie that was before that.
yeah, the animated series
Love
is great.
on Star.
Yes.
Yeah,
But then
that's
I think those were the comics that drew me back in, were those dark anti-heroes because I was in that place. I had just, returned home after living abroad. I had separated from somebody I'd been living with for 5 years, and I just threw myself back into my comics. And they were the things, those dark anti, you know, listening to my Alanis Morissette albums all over again because I'm like, "Arr!" Even though like she wasn't cool anymore, I was like, I just don't care. You in Linkin Park, that's all I'm listening to. Um, it was like but that pulled me out of where I was and got me back into then mainstream, and then I went back to start reading more the newer kind of Batman stuff, and then I found Jason Todd, and it just made my life even better because I love him, and like I love my Red Hood, and I get taken the piss out of all the time when I'm on the other podcast for loving Jason Todd, but I do. And I can't
I
help
like.
myself.
Hey, I have been an advocate that Jensen Ackles needs to be cast as the live action Red Hood.
He's too old.
No, don't say that. He did such a great job in Under the Red Hood
Oh,
that
I
he could be
agree
an
completely. The
older
voice
Red
is
Hood.
perfect.
He can be an
But
older Red
where are
Hood.
we gonna where is that gonna fit in? Are we got only if Michael Keaton comes back to be Batman?
Well, no. We can still do an older Batman, but
Keaton.
it doesn't have to be based off of any particular storyline. Let's come up with something original for the movies and have Jensen Ackles be Red Hood. End of
Let's have
story.
a Red
Okay,
Hood movie.
Josh
right.
wins.
Although it
Josh, I
surprises
am
me,
totally on board for a Red Hood movie.
who do we cast as my new favorite Robin, which was not how I felt about him when he was first introduced, but who plays Damian Wayne?
Oh, wait for it. Wait for it. Hold on.
What's his
Um,
name? That Jason. What's his name? Gordon Lovett.
no, he's too old to play Damien.
No, he's not.
Plus,
No, but
honestly,
not we're doing an older. No, we're doing an older Red Hood.
but here's the problem with Joseph Gordon-Levitt is
He still looks.
because of his role in The Dark Knight Rises, it's going to be hard for critics
Get
to
past.
look past the whole. You really should use your first name, Robin.
He
So
didn't
I'm
write that shit.
just. Well, I realize he didn't write that shit, but he is stuck under that shit. Just like George Clooney is stuck under being the worst Batman on the planet.
Where's the Val Kilmer?
Oh, yeah. Oh yeah.
Holy rusted
Um,
metal, Batman.
Hmm.
let's see.
That's interesting.
Google's gonna have fun with. They're
Right.
gonna.
We
So
are
Google's gonna
we
be
are we
looking
are
at my
totally
stuff.
totally off. We are totally off topic, but it's great.
while you're looking that up, would you like me to go to adult David?
Yes, please.
Uh, so, um, gosh, I feel like I'm telling my personal story here today. I hope this isn't boring everybody.
No, not at all. But this is what it does to us. This is what comics have. They are part of our lives.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so like I shared that I was at West Point and the problems I'd had, and one of the things was is I was one of those kids that always had to be perfect and wanted to do what everybody expected me to do. Um,
Mm.
and here I was, an officer in the army, and then I eventually got out, and I was like, I want to be who I am inside, and I hid that a lot, and now I am who I am. I'm sarcastic. I can be ironic. I like to tell jokes, but I was hid everything about myself for a long time. And so when I became an adult, and another part of my personality that I really struggled with as Catholic and just as a person was, um, and as a Hispanic, you learn to box from like the time you could walk. My grandpa was out there in the backyard. I'm like 3 years old with boxing gloves on, and I'm getting knocked down. So you learn to fight. And I'll be honest, I enjoy fighting. I do mixed martial arts. I've done karate. I've done judo. I've done boxing, wrestling. There's times when I feel like I just want to get in a fight. Probably a lot of Irish people probably identify with that. You get hit and you get up. You feel good.
Stereotype much?
Tracy, Tracy, is that true?
I haven't been in a fight since I was 14.
Oh,
Well, not one that I haven't won.
but one of the for a long time I struggled with the fact that I was like, not only am I enjoy going out and fighting and I enjoy being a soldier. I like it, and it's one of those struggles you get because you're like, I'm Catholic. It's like I don't want to hurt people. I don't want to fight people to hurt people, but I enjoy learning these things. Does that
But
make
I
sense?
enjoy doing it.
Yeah,
It's like all
and,
the other things you shouldn't do if you're Catholic.
yeah, exactly.
They take all the fun things that you're not, and say you're not allowed to do any of them.
yeah,
Sorry if
and
anybody's
birthright,
Catholic and listening, but
yeah,
hey, it's the truth.
I mean, your birthright as a Catholic is guilt. So it's like, and so finally, as an adult, I finally realized, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to be me. And me is not a person who is an iconic hero, who's going to be always good, is always going to try to do good, but he's not going to be standing there with his hands on his hips with his cape flapping. And so,
You wear your underpants on the inside.
yes, exactly. And so I want to be the guy in the trench coat with the cigarette hanging out of the corner of his mouth with
Yeah.
tats on his arms. Or the guy with the big stony rock for a
Yeah.
right hand and a big ass gun on his hip, you know, or the guy who is telling jokes and is meta as hell while he's slicing people up. And so I say all that to say that I graduated and came to who I still am today. And so characters like Constantine, Hellboy, or Deadpool, those three are probably my favorite as far as who I identify with the most. They're characters who a lot of times try to do the right thing. In Deadpool's case, he probably fails at trying to do the right thing a lot of times. But
Yeah.
they stay true to who they are, and they're wisecracking through a lot of it, and they keep their sense of humor about them. And I just identify with them so much. And I love that aspect too because of their comics, because they're messy. They're not cut
Yeah.
and dry, simple. You get down into the weeds, and there's some really dark things where I've gone down those dark roads as an adult, and you travel them, and you come back out the other side a little dirty, a little wiser, and with a lot more experience. And that's those three characters all the time, and that's what I really love. So, and that's kind of where I ended
Yeah,
up. Still am.
I would completely agree. As I said, you all know, I love John, and he is my all time favorite character. He everything about him I loved from the start, from reading him from the very first page to even to the crappy kind of new ones that they tried to bring out in the last couple of series. And it's it's those characters who lift you up. They are that beacon in the darkness. They are the hope that you can be as good as at least they are on their good days. And same with the likes of Spawn and stuff. For me, it was like he's an evil bastard, but he is doing things for the right reasons.
Definitely.
He's trying. And I would be saying like I love BRPD as well. Like so, Abe Sapien for me is an amazing character. For somebody who is so different and so wanting to conform to being this extremely intelligent, needed person, hugely important person to this group.
So,
Um,
and
and
talking about female characters, in Hellboy, you even have Liz
yeah, Liz is
Sherman and
she's,
and
she,
Kate Monahan, and so
there's so many, and like even with Preacher and stuff, I love the Preacher series, um, and in the comics, I hated his girlfriend, his partner. I hated how they portrayed her, who she was, and then they made the TV show, and the TV show had the main female character is played by the Irish actress Ruth Negga, and she just changed that character completely, Tulip, and I love the TV adaptation of her because she's sassy and she's hard and she doesn't take any bullshit and she definitely takes no bullshit from no men and no men in her life. She is strong. She is who she is, but she's soft as well. And I love that when you can identify in those aspects in your life as well. So there are amazing people out there. If it's not just, in the paper pages, sometimes they are also on the, comic relations, whether it be through a TV show or a movie adaptation. That's kind of different than the original. And as a purist, I kind of give out a lot about that. But there's certain times I just have to say, no, that's better than that.
yeah, and that's not to say that I don't still have my favorites that are traditional superheroes, because
Mm.
I really am a Batman fan, and when I'm in, when I want my underpants on the outside, it's gonna be Batman. So when I'm gonna wear the trunks on the outside, it's Batman, and that's because I think Batman fits into my headspace now, really, where
Yeah,
it's so layered and interesting, and while Batman is definitely a force for good, it's not always strictly black and white, and so that's
yeah.
really what I needed, or what I still need. So
I find nowadays, old man Logan, that that series, that comic series was phenomenally beautiful to read. And then the Logan movie, then was
Oh,
heartbreaking.
that
oh
was
good lord,
such a
yeah.
great movie.
It was
Loved it.
it was so beautiful that it it, it, it touched a piece of my heart while I watched it. And then somebody sent it to me in black and white. Have you watched it in black and white?
Oh yeah, I have the noir version of it. Yep.
And it's just these things that these people we know we've grown up with, and we have grown up with Hugh Jackman, and he has grown old in that, gracefully in that, from his first ever appearance as Wolverine, and he played Old Man Logan so well. It was just beautiful, and it was
Well,
different, but it was
he's been the
beautiful.
character for so damn long that you would expect him to.
Yeah, Which is funny though, because I remember reading something on either Instagram or Twitter, and there was a lot of like the superheroes, and they were saying what their children were saying, and Hugh Jackman was saying that one day one of this kid was in school going, "Oh my God, your dad's Wolverine," you na 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 na," and his son turned around and went, "Look, I need to stop you there. My dad isn't as cool as Wolverine."
And I love in that movie in particular. I love the dynamic between X-23
And him,
and Logan, and then what really broke my heart in that movie. I mean, besides the ending and Logan, was seeing the state of
Charles.
Charles. Yeah, it was like
Yeah,
it was difficult and emotional, but very very good.
yeah,
So
yeah. So I'd say like that for me was, but as I said, the Oh Man Logan comic itself was just, oh, beautiful. But the movie really did it justice, and it did the storyline, even though it was different, it didn't ruin the purity of it. And I think a lot of people older, as in, people who are now in their 20s, 30s, 40s, even, were looking at it, and they're looking at Charles as somebody who may be a parent or a grandparent who has, dementia, Alzheimer's. These things are real issues. And
Mhm.
and looking at Logan take care of him out of all the other X-Men in the world, he was the one that was left to look after him.
Yeah. So
And
to answer your question, and I'm going to revert back to earlier,
oh, who's
uh,
going to play?
who's going to play Damien?
Yeah,
All right. So Luke, let me get his Billick, Billyk.
who is he?
Let's
What
see.
is he in? Was he in?
Let's see. He was in Degrassi, The Next Generation. He was in Lost Girl. Let's see. Hellions. A lot of no-name stuff, but he's got the facial structure that looks like a really, really like the spawn of Bruce Wayne.
okay.
Mm. Do we know who's going to be a Tim Drake then?
No, not yet.
That's one for another day.
We're
That
casting
yes.
Batman family in this pod, so
Yeah,
That's
duh.
a whole other pod, Batman family, and who should play them in new movies. There should be a Batwoman movie because dang, that woman has a story she could tell.
Well, she's getting her own series on the CW.
Yeah, but there should be a movie.
and
You're
that's
you're right.
interesting. It's interesting that you brought up Cassandra Cain because I do like reading Batwoman comics, and
Yeah.
there's one reason in particular, and I bet you can guess why because she went to the same school as I did,
Oh
which
God, yeah.
interesting was really really interesting, and I love that aspect of her character. So
I think she's got so much emotional depth that she seems more like a real person than Bruce Wayne. But
Yeah,
that's
I
just
can
my
see that.
opinion.
No, I can see it.
That's just my opinion. Okay,
Well,
guys.
obviously we're good with that.
Yeah, I am going to wrap this up. So I want you to give me your three most influential comic book characters.
See how she had to put that disclaimer in because of my going
Your
which
digress.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear any complaints with that.
No, because it means we have now got ideas for new pods. So I didn't realize we could sit and talk about wrestling on the Dynamic Convergence. And if we can't, we're going to set up a wrestling podcast, just so we can. Because I could talk for that stuff, but especially that age, for a long time. And
Yay!
let us go and talk about your top three.
David, go first.
um, we're sticking Marvel and DC, right?
As best you can.
Okay, top three: Flash,
Yeah.
Nightcrawler, and Ooh, where do I want to go? I don't want to steal Tracy's thunder, so I'm going
No,
to
you can pick John because I'm going to pick John as well. So that's 2 against 1.
Okay, then I would say John Constantine. And if I had to pick someone other than John Constantine, I would say, oh, he's not influential, but I love him, Deadpool. So,
Yeah,
so that's my pick.
I think that's a good pick. That's a good pick, Josh.
So Batman.
Okay.
Um, I'm gonna go out on a limb. Two-Face,
Okay.
and then I'm gonna go with shit. There's so many that would take the third spot. Good hell.
Just pick one.
Raphael from the comics.
Raphael from the Dark Raphael, like real broody.
Yes.
Yes, he's a much better Raphael. Okay, then for me, it's John at number 1. Then we have Wonder Woman at number 2, and then we have Storm in number 3. I didn't even have to think about it. I just knew that's who they were.
Sounds like a hell of a super team right there.
I'm telling you, you know what I mean? Well, let's not give more people ideas for writing about super teams because I don't know if you guys know, but after one of our last podcasts, it wasn't this one, it was one of
It
our
was,
other ones.
yeah.
We were discussing about teams that we put together, and the guys were taking the piss out of me big time over some of my choices. And then there was an amazing guy who listens to our podcast decided to do a little sketch up of what he thought his super team would be using said character who you guys are not happy with. And then he's after writing a script. It's like, oh my god, he's in this fan fiction about these things that we talked about. It was cool. He sent me the script.
It was cool. It is cool.
Well, it
I've
is
seen what he's been
cool.
posting, and
Yeah.
it is the coolest thing.
He has
You
sent
talked
me the
about how
full.
we've influenced people,
He sent me the
and
full script.
That's
I'm gonna have a chat with some of my artist friends here in Ireland.
ooh,
See if anybody would be interested in maybe doing a web series of this comic.
yes,
So you heard it here first, guys.
very cool.
that is awesome.
It would be very cool. What we'll do is we'll ask the sound guy because he normally adds the notes if he'd put the link on. Um,
Oh,
and
to
see.
his Twitter.
Yeah, so he can follow the
I-
feeds.
I'll make a note to the audio guy. I may get. He's kind of a douche.
He's an
He got
asshole.
he got pissy the other day over some stupid shit.
Do you know why? Because people
Um,
weren't filling in the forms. I don't even have access to the forms, so I know he's going to lose his shit with me again for this one. But there's
I
nothing I can
got
do
you.
about it.
I got you. I'll tell the audio guy to shove it.
See,
Oh,
the audio guy is my influence in my adult years. So.
is he?
Is he? That's awesome.
Okay, guys. Well, I would just like to say thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. Very much appreciate how open and honest you guys were, especially with some of your stories. If again, people who are listening to this, if anything we said have triggered or touched you in any way that you need to talk to anybody, always ask for help. We will be talking about mental health issues in one of our next podcasts, just so you are aware. And if you do want to contact us for anything, just send us a little tweet. We're always online. So, thank you
Yeah.
very much, guys.
Have fun.
Goodbye, everyone. Have a good one.